Hello and welcome to Upper Pen. Today I am talking with Sarah Maria Griffin about her recently released book, Eat the Ones You Love. Thank you so much for joining me today, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me, Dakota. I'm delighted.
One thing, I love your pink hair, by the way. It's very pretty.
Thank you so much. It was a mishap that we are making work for us.
Well, all the best things in life are mishaps, it seems.
A happy little mistake, yeah.
Um, so can you give a brief little description about what Eat the Ones You Love is about?
Yes, I have to get better at doing this. You spend a very long time with the work alone, and then suddenly you have to hold it up into the light and speak about it. So I am not quite as succinct at the elevator pitch as I normally am. So it is about two women who work in a flower shop in a dying shopping center who are being observed and stalked and obsessed over by a orchid which grows in a garden, an ornamental garden at the middle of the mall. And his name is Baby. The story is told from his perspective, and the story is about their relationship through his eyes and interference.
It's
There you go.
when I first started reading it, I couldn't tell who was supposed to be talking because you don't meet Baby.
Yeah,
Um,
for a couple of pages. Yeah.
yeah, so it takes a minute to get there, and I was like, "Oh, that's brilliant!" It's
Thank you.
from the point of view of this. I don't want to say narcissistic plant. It just wants to take over a little.
He's just hungry.
Yeah.
He's just hungry, you know? He doesn't have, I don't think he has much of a sense of himself outside of this feeling of adoration for Neve and of hunger. And I guess he's curious about humans. He enjoys being a spectator, but his perspective is a third omniscient. So the whole novel is, except for some chapters that are deliberately separate, is from his perspective. Even the parts that feel omniscient are also Baby. So he's
Okay.
he's the eyes of the world.
Okay. I mean, it works really well because you get this sense of he doesn't know a whole lot about the world, so you can explore
No.
pretty well through him, which I thought
Hmm.
was pretty wonderful because I had no idea what was going on at first.
Yeah, I throw you in the deep end. Pretty hard. Yeah.
Um, so Shell is moving back from a job in, was it a city, I want to say?
Yeah, Dublin is quite small, to be fair to us now. Every so often I'm going to America on tour tomorrow, and I used to live there. I lived in California for 3 years, and every so often I'm sort of struck with the difference in scale. Dublin is the same size as San Francisco. It's 7 by 7 miles, give or take. It's not large. So she's moving from the center of Dublin out to the suburbs. It's about a 25-minute drive, but it's also a world apart.
Yeah, and it's this good kind of outsidery view almost. Even though she's from this area, it feels like she's still, she was a city girl for a while.
Yeah. She was upwardly
Uh,
mobile. Yeah.
and then you
And
also have this dying mall. I take it you grew up in the time of dying malls.
I did, and I worked in one. So the mall in the story is called the Woodbine Crown shopping center, and it's a kind of an amalgam of four shopping centers in North Dublin. Um, and it calls back to periods of my own life, both of working in these environments and also experiencing them as a child. The architecture and the sense of strangeness about these places is something that I was obviously obsessed enough with to write a book about it. So it's something that I've thought about a lot throughout my life. And in the way that in Sex and the City, the four girls are the main characters, and then New York is the other girl.
Yeah.
The Woodbine Crown is the other character in the romantic situation. It is falling apart. It's at the end of its life, and um, I've recently had a baby, and during the first months of her life, while I was practicing being a person in the world with an infant, myself and my husband would drive out to shopping centres at the limits of Dublin and walk around them at night in the last hours of their opening with the baby in the pram. And I had finished the book by then, but it really reaffirmed my sense of wonder and appreciation of these third spaces that we are losing. And also the fact that they're bizarre. They're long corridors, they're weird alcoves, they're empty fountains, they're the strangest places that we have, and they're not going to be around much longer.
It's really kind of a bummer to me though, because this was like where people went to hang out, and
It
at least in
was.
my town, because we live in a relatively
Yeah.
cold environment, and like you can either freeze or you can go to the mall.
And I'd say in the hotter states, it's the same. You can either toast out there or you can go to the mall. And I think the great American mall is so it's so much grander, and I've had the privilege of going to America on holidays before I lived there. I've been to the big one in Florida, and actually comparatively recently I was there. My husband was on a business trip in Florida and I tagged along, and I went walking around that the kind of it's like a cathedral.
Oh, wow.
It's so huge and white and there's so much glass. It's a very serious environment for something as profoundly unserious as shopping. And I think that they're necessary. Like, I think people like going to shops to look at things.
Mhm.
And I think with this sort of the decay that and again, I'm chronically online. I'm not like I think the internet has had a great capability to be incredible, but it is going through a particularly dark moment. But I think the internet is the great decay on the third space. So malls have been rendered profoundly obsolete by the retail giants of the internet, and you watch the shutters fall month on month, you know. And the American ones to me are so romantic in my mind's eye. I just find they're so nostalgic. They're nostalgic of my own youth and of the youths that I watched in cinema and in television. So they're kind of these fantasy landscapes in their own right. And they're much nicer than Irish shopping centres. Our ones are way less flash and way less exciting.
Well, I live in the Midwest. I'm sure mine are closer to yours than
Uh, Oh,
than
but
else.
I get to go to the Midwest for the first time next week, and I am so excited. I have about 30 hours in Indiana, and
Oh.
I am very excited to find some unusual retail spaces to go to. I'm gonna go through those big corridors. I'm very excited.
If you go to Indianapolis, is what I'm assuming you're
Yes,
going to.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm going to just outside there, Bloomington, for the event, but I
Yeah.
will be going through Indianapolis.
There's it's like a motel hotel that is in like train cars. It's such a strange city to me.
I'm so down. I'm down. I've got such limited time, and I won't sleep. I won't sleep a wink. I'll be up in the morning being like, "What can I go and look at?" Because I think it's all in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
I do. I think it's one man's trash is another man's treasure, and I think that if you treat everywhere that you go as though it could potentially be a museum to something, you're just gonna have a better time across the board. Do you know?
Yeah.
So when I go to America, the first thing I do is I go to a supermarket you know like I just find it I find it like a library of experience. And the mall is kind of a grand extension of that.
Mhm.
It's not like I'm some shopaholic who's like knocking around with 8,000 pairs of shoes. I'm just interested in what's going on, and they're also great places to people watch as well. Oh
Yeah.
my God, the things that you see in a food court. It's so good, it's delicious.
So a little side tangent, and then we'll get back to the book, I promise.
Yeah, of course. This is what the
Uh,
book's about, really. A lot of it is.
it really is the setting though. But my
Yes,
side
yeah.
tangent is when my husband and I first started dating, I was in grad school, so I didn't have a whole lot of money. And we would go around to shopping centers or like supermarkets and judge them based on their fanciness or like what the deli was like. I don't know
Yes.
why.
Because it's good and interesting and silly and fun. That is why.
And
That is
it's
a
cheap,
perfect.
you
Oh,
know?
and it's cheap. It costs nothing. You might walk out with like a soda and like some weird seasonings
Yeah.
or a particularly nice slice of cake. You know, I just think it's yeah. I that sounds gorgeous to me. That sounds like a lovely beginning to a relationship. And again, similarly with my own daughter, the first months of her life were spent being rolled around a shopping center in the
Yeah.
dark. You know what I mean? It was absolutely, it was really safe. It was really quiet. It was really weird. You know, it was all of the things I needed, you
Mhm.
know, at this particular moment of transition and this big portal. Um, and the idea that we live on the event horizon of a world wherein the shopping center is redundant. Like
Yeah.
where at 8 p.m. on a Thursday night, all stores in Ireland close like at 9 or 10 on Thursday nights. I don't know if it's the same with you. Can a fledgling mother and infant walk in the winter when it is dark? Nowhere,
Nowhere. And
right?
it's absurd to me that there's no spaces for late night areas.
None, none that aren't bars.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and the mall offers like space, a roof, shelter, you
Mhm.
know? And yes, it does intersect with capital. Obviously, there are shops, but
Yes.
there's no point in waging the moral war that where is a better space? Well, libraries is the answer. Libraries is always the answer. Libraries is the answer to everything forever, right?
Well,
But they're not open at 10 p.m. or 8 p.m.
yeah.
I can't
And
walk around a library with my baby. That's not
yeah,
fair,
if the
you
baby
know?
starts to cry, then the librarians are like, shh.
I'm not doing that to them or the other people there. Where there is some and you know, if you're going to enter hand in hand, if you're going to walk outside, someone's like capital is going to try and come down on you, right?
Mhm.
But at least within a mall, you know what you're entering into. You have an understanding of the function of that space in society. So you go, cool, yeah, there's shops here. Like I'm not going to start like buying watches and stuff when
Right.
I'm in this mode. I might buy a coffee, a
Yeah.
double shot coffee because I haven't slept in months, you know, or oh, I might buy some socks for my baby. Like it's not the same as scrolling the internet and feeling the sort of psychological warfare that like TikTok acts out on you,
Oh
you
gosh.
know, or ads that are videos. You know, you're not engaged in the same uh kind of battle. You
Mhm.
know what a shopping center is? It's in the name. It's for shopping. You
It's for
know?
wandering, but
It's
yeah.
for yeah, but also that's why it's there. So, um, yeah, I think they're very special, and that is so lovely. God, I would love that to go on dates in fancy shopping centers or on fancy supermarkets. I'd be down. That's beautiful.
It's such a weird idea, but I loved it.
Yeah.
So getting back to the book,
Oh yeah.
the whole mall really does feel like more than just a space because it is acting on the characters themselves, it feels like.
Yeah, it is. It's decay, it's actively falling apart. So
Yeah.
babies' tendrils and vines are quite literally within the walls of the
Yeah.
space and are starting to pull it apart. And the characters that we meet in the sort of set uh of Eat the Ones You Love are they all work in trades that can't really be replaced by the internet. So a travel agent technically should be replaceable by the internet, and yet somehow travel agents, like cockroaches, are outlasting the end of the world. I still personally find it the most glamorous job. My grandmother's best friend when I was growing up was a travel agent, and I just think I still find it the most glamorous job in the world. I think it is. You sit at a desk in a nice scarf and you help people go on holidays. Oh my God, how utopian is that? You know? So we have a travel agent, a hairdresser crucial, and a dude who works in a photocopying shop. We still need photocopying shops. I am sorry, they are much less than they used to be, but we still desperately need places to go to print things from the internet. So they are the sort of last outposts with the florist in this huge space that is otherwise kind of crumbling and has a supermarket, I guess, is the other thing people need. So their purpose there is the same as the last purpose of the shopping center. This is the last thing that this space has to offer before it falls apart. So they're intrinsically tied to it.
That is such a beautiful description.
Thank you.
Um, you
I worked
also,
retail for years. I think shops are really important.
I I'm down. Like I'm down with this. But you also have another character, well, two other. You have Neve,
Yes.
who is the actual love interest for
Everyone loves Neve. Neve has like three people who's in love with her. Like Neve is the center of attention.
to be fair though, she's pretty great.
hmm
And then
she's yeah.
you also have is it Dr. Jen?
Dr. Jen. Yes, Dr. Jen. Yeah.
I did not know how to feel about her through the book.
Yeah, Dr. Jen is she's the sort of Matryoshka doll of protagonists in this story. Jen is the secret hero. Someone else is the secret hero of the story, but the Jen rises to the fore in the latter half of the book for sure. Yeah.
And you have an interesting way of framing the narrative. So there's five sections, six sections, seed, shoot, blossom, fruit, and arrangement.
Arrangement. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you choose what was going to be in what section? Like, was it always
Oh,
sectioned?
no. Well, yes, it was. It was always sectioned, and it was called, the book had two titles before this one. It was called Plant Baby, and it was called Seed Shoot Flower Fruit.
Oh.
And it is now Eat the Ones You Love, which I think is perfect. But the structure of it was very important to me because it's the life cycle of a flower, and then the arrangement is where the flower ends up.
Mhm.
Um, and Jen was the last thing to come into the story. I write backwards. I am not a person who can give adequate structural writing advice because I need adequate structural writing advice. I feel like every time I start a project, I start at an inconvenient point and worm my way out of the labyrinth slowly. And well, not slowly, not recently, but with Eat the Ones You Love, I started to write it during the pandemic. And in 2020, I had qualified as a commercial florist because I had given up writing. I was like, I'm finished, I'm done, I'm out of here, I don't want to do this anymore. I've broken my heart off of this job, and I would like to go and be a person who isn't obsessed with their job anymore. This is a book about people who are obsessed with their jobs.
Yeah.
And I requalified as a florist. And then, just as I was about to go and get an apprenticeship, the month was March 2020, I think. And I was finalizing a module in funeral flowers. And this is not a word of a lie. Standing there listening to the radio in the studio with all these lovely women who are going back for second careers, nurses included. Um, we were listening to the radio, and I was stuffing a giant foam crucifix full of roses. And the first COVID cases had hit Ireland.
Oh God.
So yeah, that's the truth. And it was so strange. And I'd had in the back of my head this idea about writing a book about a flower and writing a book about a flower. That's the truth. And I then spent the following year or so writing this book. And it sold in a deal in 2022. So it's had a long road out. Yeah. So it's been rewritten and rewritten a good few times, including removing every single mention of the pandemic because it was set during 2012.
Well,
So
yeah.
yeah. So the seed, shoot, flower, fruit structure was always there. Jen wasn't always there. And her
Okay.
emails weren't always there. So that all came in later. It
Okay.
was not written in a cohesive order at all. I do not know to this day how we got here, but we did. With the books that I've written since, I learned a lot about technical structure from writing this work. And in the projects that I finished since then, I have had a much easier time planning things. But seed, shoot, flower, fruit arrangement um, helped as a backbone to the story.
They almost seem like short stories that are put together that kind of like
Yes,
make sense. Um, is that how you
episodes.
wrote them? They were like,
Kind of. I knew that we were getting towards a particularly cataclysmic ending, and the original ending of the story was not so. I don't know if this is a book with a happy ending, but the original ending of the story was much less humane,
oh, good.
to be honest. So it had a completely different path out. Um, so the final story in the quad was really, really different. The ending was really, really different. But the I'm not sure if there was a generative, deliberate storyboarding.
Mhm.
Um, but this was the way that it wound out.
It works though, because
I'm glad.
from the point of view of Baby, it is very much like an incremental seeping into these people's lives.
Yes. The whole thing about floristry is that it is the sale of things that are already dead and the protraction of death. So she says cheerfully. So I really wanted the structure of the story to reflect what we were going through. It's this is not really a book about growing. This is a book about coming apart.
And I do really think the sections work well as ways to limit what you know immediately. Because I was always like, what is going to happen? Like, I don't, where can we go? So,
It's a great question. Where can we go? Like this is the thing. I knew for a while what I wanted Baby to do.
mhm,
And then when I had written the version of it where he did what I he did win,
mhm.
I was faced with an extraordinarily bleak story. And I think as a right for me at this point in my kind of creative life, I think I have a sense of duty to make sure there is always hope. And it's very easy to negate hope and to fail the reader and to kind of invite them just into more grimness. And upon changing the ending, I I had read this fabulous book by a writer called Kirsty Logan, and it was a very dark story. It's called Now She's a Witch, and Now She is Witch. It's set in the 15th century. It's really, really good. And somehow, against all of the bleakness in the story and the horror, it has this really resounding ring of hope. And I felt that I had to give everyone what they, not everyone gets what they want,
Mhm.
everyone gets what they need, and also everyone gets what they deserve. And I think it's that final thing of deserving that managed to lift the final movement of the book out of a kind of a bleakness, I think.
You seem to have an interest in post-apocalyptic worlds and these kind of like rather sad environments.
Yeah, I'm Irish. It's kind of part of the build, you know.
Well, it's all the beautiful, but remote landscape, I would imagine.
We grow a lot of green for an island full of skeletons. Do you know what I mean? Genuinely. Like we're as a nation profoundly preoccupied with our history, which is not highly decorated with victory or prosperity. And I think that a lot of Irish, I mean, obviously Irish writing is having this incredible moment on a global stage. We are funny people and we are storytellers, but I think we also have a very serious sense um of dystopia.
Yeah.
I think we do. I think we do. And especially because Ireland on a kind of a global level, we get away with a lot. We are a tiny green island at the northern coast of Europe who are well known for being a lot of fun. And what a blessing, right? But at the same time, I think that that comes from somewhere hard. That comes from a hard place. And when I all my books are always about Ireland. I'm just about to finish a draft at the moment of a book about San Francisco where I used to live. And somehow that book is also about Ireland, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't think I will ever stop being obsessed with this place, you know? So the dystopian spirit comes from home.
Okay. So the other book that I find really interesting that I haven't read yet, but really, really want to now
Mm.
is Spare and Found Parts.
Yeah, my first novel, yeah.
And it seems from the description at the very least that it might be a little bit more hopeful, also sad, but a little hopeful.
Yes, it's definitely much more hopeful. It's a book about moms, it's about mothers, it's a book about building things.
Mhm.
It's a book about feeling different to other people. I wrote it in my 20s and um I kind of it for years, I just before I was finished, I just used to call it the sexy Frankenstein novel. And it's not a sexy book at all, unfortunately. But it is about a young woman called Nell in Ireland after the end of the world. I was very interested in depicting a dystopia after the end had come. And what does the world look like when it is sparse and full of people who have survived? And what does that survival look like on a physical level as well as a cultural level? So, the future that now lives in is one without technology in the way that we know it. So, there are no computers. There is no screens. It is that was part of the end of things. So Nell finds a piece of a computer, it's functionally an iPod, and decides to turn a tiny computer into a friend. And the implication is that we're sort of post-singularity, you know,
Mhm.
and it's about that journey and her role in her village and her family's role and what it means to contribute to society, you know, and what it means to have a friend in the world, I suppose, you know.
That makes me want to read it even more because M.R. Carey has the Book of Coley, and there's an iPod essentially that is an AI personality. But that one is all about leaving, and this one sounds more like it's about staying and becoming part of something.
It is, and it's about if you can't find it, make it, you
That's
know.
that's really cool.
I think in retrospect, it's a long time since I've even opened it. Do you know? Because I've been so myopic and so focused on the path ahead, that I mean, I have Spare and Found Parts, Other Words for Smoke was my book that came out in 2019. Then the pandemic happened, and I had some professional moving around and things like that. And I wrote the novel that's coming out next year, with Tour, which is whopper 120,000 words. It's about tabletop role-playing games and being cruel to your friends. And
Great, I'm down.
it's a bad time for all, terrible time for all. And I've another novel that yeah, like I said, I'm just in the final stages of, and a few other projects. So I have moved like I'm like a shark, you know, I can't stop. So when I think about Spare and Found Parts now and the way that I talk about it now, it's so different from how I would have spoken about it at the time because I look back and I see somebody in their 20s who was desperately trying to make sense of her own place in the world and her own place as a creative because the nexus of the story is really about what can you contribute
Mhm.
and why is the thing that you're contributing so weird? You know,
Yeah.
justify yourself. So it was me beginning to figure out a puzzle that would follow me the rest of my creative life. Um, so I would probably feel very differently about it if I opened it today, you know.
Well, you're now a mother, right? I want to know if you
Yeah.
feel like those motherhood parts really align.
Oh, there's a dead mother in this one as well. So potentially, yeah, oh, I don't know. I've only been a mother for 6 months. I haven't really worked it out yet. So I think there was a lot of questioning about, I guess, about daughterhood more than motherhood. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And what it meant to be a maker because I was a maker before I was a mother too. And now I'm both, which is weird. So yeah, that's a whole different texture that the work is going to have now, I guess,
Mhm.
you know?
What are the projects? So you said one's coming out next year. What
Yes.
do you know the title? Are you allowed to talk about it?
I cannot yet tell you the title because we have a few that we are choosing. Titling is my hardest, it's the hardest job. It's like pulling magic out of the air. All of
Yeah.
my books have had different titles that they've ended with. I it's like it's harder than writing the world's most delicate haiku, you know, a title. A title is like a promise, a threat, a
Mhm.
branding statement. It's all of these things in one go. So we're actually right now trying to narrow down a couple. And the ones that I'm fighting for are nuts, so I'm definitely not going to get away with it. But it's about a group of childhood friends who are reunited over a winter. in their early 20s when one of them has done something terrible and embarrassing and has been distributed on the internet. And she has sort of retreated back to this group of childhood friends on an island off the coast of she spent the summers of her youth on an island off the coast of County Kerry called Valentia. And she does something terrible at a house party. And she kind of elopes down to the island to wait for everything to blow over. And what she finds there is a situation that is dangerous and exciting and messy and boozy and involves a game.
Mhm.
Uh, and something very bad happens at the table. And then we meet them all again when they're nearly 40. So
Oh.
it looks at their childhoods, it looks at their messy 20s, and it looks like what coming back together again after feels like. So it's definitely a book about growing up. And it's a
Okay.
book about summer friends and what that means through your whole life. And my original pitch for it was that it was like a haunted Jumanji novel. So you can you can take from that what you will. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. And then you said
So
you had one more that did you already
writing right
pitch it?
now.
Oh, okay.
No, we're on our way with it. It is if the book for next year is Haunted Jumanji, this one is a haunted video game novel. So I moonlight as a video game critic for The Guardian, and I love video games, and I have been working out how to write about them for years. And I read, like every other like millennial woman, read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow a couple of years ago, and I found it really permissive. I was like, oh, we're just allowed to talk about them like their art, like their serious art. Like I know they're serious art, but I'm allowed to include them in books. I'm allowed to write the word Super Nintendo into my fiction and not have it be alienating to people.
Yes.
Um, so I apparently so. So this one is more of a romp. But there is also a monster at the end of the book. And crucially, in next year's book, there is a monster at the end of the book. In my previous novel, Other Words for Smoke, there is a monster at the end of the book, and all of the monsters in these novels are connected. So they're all like Baby has a cousin whose name is Sweet James, and he's in Other Words for Smoke. And Baby's other cousin, whose name is the Revelator Delicious, is in the next book. So
Oh.
there are, and the next monster, I'm not going to tell you his name, but there are a kind of sort of a pantheon of these hungry creatures that are in each of the novels. And I keep like with this one I'm finishing right now, I'm trying to write a normal book. I was like, we're just gonna write about two journalists who go on a quest to find like a video game. No, we're gonna write about monsters because I guess the great puzzle box of fiction is that you're opening up your heart and you're trying to find what's in there. And I guess what's in mine is hungry creatures, and I can't quite shake them.
I think creature features or books with horrifying creatures that are just trying to survive
They're
are,
just hungry. They're
yeah,
just hungry, you know?
they represent the world and the unknown in such a perfect way. Um,
You're right. And I think the job of the horror or sci-fi or whatever writer, I don't know. I still don't know what kind of writing I do. But the job of, for the want of a better phrase, kind of speculative fiction and science fiction is to hold up a mirror. And it's a weird mirror, but it does show the truth. And I've been thinking a lot about I'm watching a lot of Drag Race at the moment with my baby and teaching her how to serve, obviously, early. But I've been thinking a lot about drag and about the trappings that we place over ourselves to tell the truth and to feel good about telling the truth. And in the way that musicians use instruments to express the truth, and painters use paint to express the truth, and drag artists use costume, I think for me, monstrosity and horror and the strange is my drag. And that is the place that I can most, it's not comfortably, but happily tell the truth. And
yeah.
I do believe making work is about happiness, actually. So, um, even though all that, like I'm like talking about the death of them all and monsters, and like it is actually about what makes your heart sing. So for me, I feel the most alive in this genre, like in this drag. So,
I'm with you though. Like I love monstery things that are exploring aspects of personhood that I've never really thought about. So like these are good.
right, this is how we should be doing. We should be turning things on their head because, like,
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong, love an accurate snapshot of life. In awe at people who can really, really crystalline capture experience without relying on drag, right?
Hmm.
Without needing the monster. But
Yeah.
it's just where I'm at in, it's just where I guess I've always been in my fiction. And it's the kind of stuff I like to read too.
Yeah. I think so. I'll go to different genres for different things. For
Mm,
horror, I like to understand how people work. It's not
yes.
necessarily about the world or like the truth of
No.
something. It's why would you make a decision like this? Why are you going forward?
Yeah.
Um,
How are you holding in there? There's a
yeah.
brilliant novel by Megan Allison called Biggest Fan, and I hope I'm getting that correct because I absolutely think about it every day. And it's sort of misery reversed, right? It's about a female mystery crime writer who is kidnapped by her biggest fan,
Ooh.
who's this really terrifying dude. And do you know what the most scary part of that novel is? She has a UTI throughout.
Oh God.
And it is so stressful. And the endurance that she expresses. Now it's a fantastic story and there's an amazing twists and turns in it. Like it's one of my favorite novels of recent years. And I do think about it all the time, but I think about the humanity that you find in Fear, that this woman is locked away by this absolute lunatic who's obsessed with her as an artist. She has it. And it's like the secondary monster in the novel, right? And that really human aspect rooted the terror for me,
Mhm.
like very, very profoundly. And I thought it was such a bold and brilliant choice on Allison's part. And I'm interested in who we are in crisis and who we are in strange. And again, where does the truth start to come up?
Yeah.
You know?
It's such a, I don't know. Books are so good.
Books are good. Books are really good. And this is what I mean about like, turn everything you go to into a gallery. Like turn every book that you show up to, if you can, because I don't believe in finishing books that you hate, but like every book that you enjoy, walk away with a shard of something, you know, like gather like seashells on the shore with it a bit, And I think that we're kind of done for without them. We need
We'll
them.
never
We
be
need books.
without them, okay?
No, no, and there's enough of them out there, right? They could it'd take me a lifetime to read half the books in my house. So, yeah, they're like the mosaic tiles that kind of build up the world.
I'm really glad that you didn't become a florist again, that you got back into writing.
Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes I feel like, oh my God, I had a way out. And I didn't do it. I brought myself back here. But it was also real proof that even though I chose to do something cool that I enjoyed and I was bad at and then got better at, it's important to be bad at things, I think. No, excellence is not required at all times, I think. Really important to start from a place of being bad at something and learn. I think what occurred to me on that journey was that I don't know if I could stop if I tried. And even if nothing ever got published again, there would still be notebooks full of it around here. So thank you for saying that. That's very kind.
Well, I'm super stoked for your next books to come out
Thank
now.
you. Thank you so much. Me too. Terrified, and excited and all that good stuff. Sort of surreal, all of it. I'm about to dip headfirst into edits on the next year's book as well. So,
Oh
uh,
goodness. Have
yeah, we
fun.
keep we keep rolling. I will. I'll try to. It'll be fine.
Well, if anybody out there has not read Eat the Ones You Love, it is a very weird, very deeply emotional book to me because of those abandoned malls. So I highly suggest reading it, and I'm looking forward to your next books coming out. And yeah, thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
talking with me.
Thanks a million for having me, Dakota. I really appreciate it.
I hope everybody out there has a wonderful day. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one.